Again, welcome to the studio. I'm glad you're having a fun Comic-Con so far. So Thomas and Jennifer, to start with you, tell me about the origin story of this idea and why you wanted to have like the internet and the human mind combine in this like spy thriller.
Actually, I would say the world has too much internet and human mind being combined right now. But this started with a love of spy novels and espionage stories, but then also my interest in science fiction. And I was kind of pushing myself to think, what is something I'm going to be worried about 5 minutes in the future? Because right now, it's like, if right now I'm worried about my laptop and my camera being hacked, what's next? And I started thinking about, oh, what if someone's eyes and ears got hacked? And then I started thinking, who's the worst person to have their eyes and ears hacked? And that's where my love of espionage and spy came in. I started thinking about this guy. I started thinking about someone who worked at an intelligence agency, realizing he was hacked. And then the last piece of the weird puzzle is my 90s love of The Truman Show. And this idea where if he found out he was hacked, the ultimate thing you would do in intelligence is not give that up. You would not let the enemy know, you would use it. So he finds a way to signal, it's me. I'm the one that's been hacked, which creates this Truman Show world of everything he sees and hears as part of a show. He has to only look and hear certain things. He can't reveal certain information, and everything becomes an act. And it really started to create this idea of who this character was and what the story was, kind of like a twisty thriller where you weren't sure exactly what was happening and who was doing what and who was on what side. And it also infused everyday scenes with life and death stakes. He can be going through his life, and he's now a double agent in his own life. And everything is for sale. Everything is part of the mission. Nothing gets held back. His parents, his love life, his friends, it's all now part of the mission. And how far will he go to give up his life for his country?
And I think for me, when I joined the project, it was very much about the paranoia of right now and how we worry constantly about being watched all the time, and what that means with the conspiracies that are out there and if they're actually real, and how technology is, there's this deep fear of not having any kind of defense against the people who are targeting you and hacking you and doing things that are out of your control. And then being able to create a story and write something that has this satisfying and rewarding end where someone, an underdog, can actually rise up and defeat, what seems like a really impossible situation. And the idea that you just might have to find friends along the way to help you, and that you don't necessarily have to do everything alone.
Yeah, and Simu, explain this Copenhagen test that your character, Alexander, is put through early on in the series and how it shows that he's not like other agents in this world.
Sure, yeah. So we start our show, the Copenhagen test, on a literal Copenhagen test. And what a Copenhagen test is in our world, in our universe, is a test of loyalty and a test of patriotism. And so it asks the question, how do we know if our soldiers, if our operators, if our agents and spies are truly loyal to our country? Well, we engineer a test in which they have to make a binary decision. And Alexander is put in this situation right away, where he's in a Belarusian jungle. There are hostages kind of being who have been freed. And so it's kind of all out chaos around him. And he has to choose, there's one seat left on a helicopter, and he has to choose who to give that seat to. Do you give that seat to an American citizen who was held hostage? Or he also comes across a Belarusian boy who is just a child and no clear sign of where his parents are, what he's doing there or anything. And he's got the child in his arms, and he's got, the American citizen next to him, and it's an impossible decision, but he makes the choice to save the child. And it's a choice that certainly haunts him, but in that moment, in that split second, that's the decision that he makes, because that's what he feels like, his moral compass is telling him is the right thing to do. And ultimately, that's also what causes him to fail the Copenhagen test, because according to his superiors, the correct decision would be to leave the child, because his duty to his country means that he has to prioritize American citizens above all else, no matter what. And so, yeah, I think it's that dichotomy is the first time that question of loyalty versus patriotism, it's the first time that gets introduced in our show, and it's very, very quickly. But it's something that Alexander has to wrestle with the consequences of in many ways over the course of the pilot and also the rest of the season.
Yeah, and To wrap up, I would love to know what like spy stories were you obsessed with when you were younger, and were you maybe thinking about them when working on this series? For me, Kim Possible was the end all be all spy when I was a kid. Like
There we go.
Yes,
she was
Kim
my
Possible,
my
our
queen.
main creative inspiration.
Yeah.
I mean, she could be.
No, totally. I grew up. I mean, watching a lot of Mission Impossible, a lot of Bond, and a lot of Bourne. And what's obvious, what I find very similar about these three is that none of them are Asian. So it's never. Yeah, you like that one, didn't you? It was crazy.
Not
I
yet.
was like, wait,
Not
so,
yet.
what,
You never know.
But it was cool to me as somebody growing up and maybe not feeling like like fully represented in that genre. It was really, really cool getting the opportunity to get to step into that role, to be the person, and in a way that felt so nuanced and organic, the way that Thomas and Jen had constructed the world and the characters. So that was really cool for me.
Yeah, and his identity as a first generation Chinese American really impacts how he moves around in this world.
Yeah, and how his world sees him as well.
Yeah.
There's just an extra. I think Mark O'Brien's character Cobb says it expressly in one of their first scenes together. Is that because you're in a first generation, you come from an immigrant family, it just adds a little bit more risk. And I love that that's just said, flat out, kind of point blank. And he's like. And Alexander's response is like, "Thank you for saying that, because at least you're saying it, and you're not acting like that's not what's happening."
Right. No one's
gaslighting.
gaslighting.
No one's
Yeah.
gaslighting me.
Yeah, that was always
Thank
one
you
of
for
the,
calling it out.
Yeah, that was always one of the central questions was, what does it feel like? And for a lot of people like me who don't have this experience, what does it feel like for someone to look at you and question whether or not you're American? And who gets to count, and where your loyalty lies, and what your allegiance matters. And that was really the thing we wanted to explore, as the tension between your country and your conscience, and how that is complicated when you feel like you have to prove yourself beyond anybody else.
Well, and the idea of allegiance versus identity, and the idea of being a minority and proving or trying so hard to prove to a country that you belong when the country doesn't necessarily trust you, is what I think was so powerful and deep about this story. I loved Carmen Sandiego, so
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna go there with Kim Possible,
Yeah.
I remember those floppy disks.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
The
floppy
floppy
disk.
so
disks and the
good. Where in the world?
Yeah. Oh, also the old Get Smart from like the
Yes,
60s.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I watched a lot of that.
We do have to wrap up, but I also do want to say some great action scenes with you and Melissa Barrera in this. It's really fun to see.
Oh, thank you so
Yeah.
much. She really threw herself into it as well. Like really kind of put in the time, and it's always just to speak about Melissa, because I know she's not here, but I mean I think I speak for all of it. We were just absolutely thrilled to be able to get her, and she's one of the bravest and most courageous people that I know, and I think that permeates every facet of her being, whether it's who she is off screen, how she approaches her on screen process, and just there's a lot of actors out there that will very gracefully bow out of an action sequence and say and look at someone getting the shit kicked out of them and say, okay, that's very cool, we'll get the stunt person to do it. And I think there's a type of actor that looks at that and is like, hell yeah, get me in there. And that's Melissa Barrera. So just so great that we have her, and I'm so excited for people to see her.
she brought something extra to every scene, something more than anything we could even think of. And it just, again, made it so much more powerful.
Yeah, at one point we got the call during production, which was like, Stunts needs to talk to you. Okay, what is it? It's like, well, Melissa has 2 days off. Yeah, she wants to come in and train an extra 2 days. Is that okay?
Yeah.
We're like,
Yeah.
yes, that's okay. Never ask again. Just go train.
She rocks.
Yeah.
She's awesome.